Hey Carrie, I'm back at it again with the next expansion that I wanted to go over, which was the Blood Moon expansion here. So the Blood Moon expansion themes more around a Halloween / monsters type of thing, with the star being the werewolf himself. The thing that I enjoy the most about the Blood Moon expansions is the extra characters that we get. We get the Vampire Huntress, the Doomsayer, and the Grave Robber. And for the first expansion that I've covered that has alternate endings. So, the way that those work is that generally, when you're playing Talisman, we have the traditional Crown of Command ending, which the end goal is to get to the middle and try to cast the command spell to be the last player standing. Well, now, in this expansion, and in the expansions to come after this, there are now new end conditions that we can play that change up the way that we can strategize. So we have this Lightbearer's ending, which is an alternate ending in which we can play. All the rules are on the cards, so it changes things for us. We have this horrible Black Void ending. And we also have this Blood Moon Werewolf ending that we can pick from. Now, if you noticed, there was a little symbol at the top left corner, the little sun. This basically means that when we decide to play alternate endings or not, this is a revealed ending, meaning that we all agreed that this is the ending that we were going to play, and everybody gets to automatically know what the win conditions are from the very beginning of the game. It entirely replaces the Crown and Command ending and just sits right at the center of the board. With these little moons up at the top, both for this expansion and for the expansions to come, these are hidden endings, meaning that we don't get to know what the ending conditions are. So, if we had a mixture of different endings, and we just picked the top one, the ending would sit at the Crown of Command like this, and it would sit there the entire game until the first person got to the Crown of Command, and that ending would be revealed at that point forward. So it adds a bit of mystery to the whole process. So, getting on to the actual Blood Moon expansion. Crazy thing is about this one, compared to any of the other small box stuff, is this 111 adventure card stack that has a very huge assortment of events and objects and just more ways to play. Aside from the 10 spell cards, we also have this new concept of a day and night cycle. So the werewolf, our buddy right here, when we start the game, he starts on this forest space right here. And whenever we have the time card in play, it always starts on day. The reason that this time card cycle is important is because regardless of what it is, if any event is drawn, the time card switches from day to night before we do anything regarding what the actual event requires. And it's vice versa. So if it's nighttime and we draw an event, we flip the card to day before we do anything. So when we move on from that point, I'm the Grave Robber, for instance. Everything plays as normal. You roll, you move, you draw cards, so on and so forth. If I roll a 1, I move as normal, do all my interactions, and then I get to move the werewolf. This is where the time card starts to come into play, because unlike the Reaper, the werewolf has conditions. If it is daytime, he has to roll the exact amount it takes to get to a character in order to encounter them. So if a character is trying to come after the grave robber and he moves the werewolf, he would have to roll exact to get there. But if it's night, that isn't the case. It's the first character that the werewolf runs into, he stops and encounters. It could even be a bad thing as well, if you consider if this is you, if you're right here, it's nighttime, and you're trying to move the werewolf to get somebody this way, that wouldn't be the best strategy, because at night it's always the first character, even if it is your character that the werewolf runs into first. So you gotta keep that in mind as you're trying to operate him. Like the Reaper, the werewolf can travel freely from the tavern to the temple and back again, as if you rolled a 6. You can also travel from the outer region sentinel into the middle region without any obstructions. And like the Reaper, he can also reach the end of the highlands and the dungeon in order to teleport to the outer and middle regions. And also like the Reaper, neither he or the Reaper can get into the inner region to go after players. So once you make it inside the portal of power, you're safe from him. Now, one of the only other things that the Blood Moon expansion introduces is the Lunar Events, which are a little bit different in concept. So if it's day right now and we have a Lunar Event, there's a Lunar Event that says that forces the time card to change, whether it could be forced it to day or force it to night. So there's one that says, force it to night, and any character that lands on another space as the same character has to attack them. So as long as it is nighttime until another event is drawn, that event remains active. So until we flip this today, we're always going to be constantly, anytime someone lands on another character, they have to fight. And so on and so forth if it's day. That Lunar Event during the day is active until the time card is switched back to night. So overall, the more important part is if you do get attacked by the werewolf, a werewolf has his own little chart here where you roll a die and then you consult what it is that you need to do. If you happen to roll a 1, you get turned into a lycanthrope, which has this card here. All the conditions for being a lycanthrope happen at night, and they're all specified on the card when it's given to you. This is a permanent effect, as in there's no undoing it, there's no turn limit to how long this lasts. This is always going to last you for the entire game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as there's some stat boosts in the lycanthrope card, but there are events inside of the Blood Moon expansion to where if you are a lycanthrope and the event finds you, it will automatically kill you. So that's also something to take into consideration. So aside from the interactions with the Blood Moon expansion through the werewolf becoming a lycanthrope and the day and night cycle with lunar events, plus the alternate endings, we're starting to get into a feel of the more expansions, because every expansion after the Blood Moon expansion has alternate endings, has different ways that you can play and different mechanics, and is all themed around certain characters and certain things, so it adds more value to base concepts.